Capablanca famously said, "I see only one move ahead, but it's always the correct one." And if you love simplicity, you're gonna love this approach. Capablanca's playing white here, and let's see how he did it. Now, here's the thing. He formulated a simple set of rules that he just followed to quietly destroy everyone. And Capablanca was known for being a bit lazy. He didn't like studying openings, he didn't like calculating variations, in fact he didn't even study chess too much, but his approach was still very effective. So here's the first thing. In an opening, which pawns should you move? Now, these are the central pawns. Why? Because you need to control the center, occupy it, plus open up files and diagonals for your other pieces to be developed. That is why pretty much always you need to move your central pawns forward. And as for the flank pawns, think twice before moving them because very often it is unnecessary. Alright, let's go ahead. Bishop b7, black develops and hits this pawn, white also develops and defends it, black goes e6, knight f3. In an opening we need to develop minor pieces and castle, Capablanca just does it. c5. Now here's the first question, what would you play in this position? A lot of players start overthinking. Alright, black attacks this pawn, should I capture here, should I push, should I defend, should I do anything about that? And guess what Capablanca did? Nothing. That was the essence of his strategy, to just follow his rules and not overthink it. He simply castled, and if you've been following this channel for at least a little while, you probably have heard the rule to take as a mistake. And here is a classical example. Taking on c5 would only help black to develop his bishop and would give nothing to white, so that's certainly not the right thing to do. Now white castle, black traded on d4, white recaptures. Now there was an interesting moment. Black thought to develop this knight, but realized that in this case white can push e5 and chase it away. And therefore he decided to reroute the knight this way. And while it makes some sense, and his opponent was actually, quite a decent player, but you see that black is actually overthinking things. And this is the opposite to what we want. So black should just develop pieces without overthinking. If this is black to play, just develop one of the minor pieces somehow, do not overthink it. Anyways, black goes knight e7, and white just develops minor pieces, knight g6, bishop e3. Again, super simple, Capablanca just wants to develop his minor pieces and castle, that is it. Black played bishop c5. How would you play here as white? By the way, these type of situations puzzles a lot of players, because in an opening, it's pretty clear you need to develop and castle. But what do you do next? This is one of the most common questions that people ask me about. And you guessed it right, Capablanca had a simple rule to follow for these type of positions as well. By the way, I gotta tell you that I really appreciate his games and I use them a lot to teach my students. By the way, in case you don't know me, I'm Grandmaster Igor Smirnov, founder of the Remote Chess Academy, and over the last 15 years we helped thousands of people to get a chess rating higher than their year of birth and get some other cool accomplishments. And what I love about his games is that they are very relatable. Because yes, you can watch yet another example of Hikaru losing to Carlsen, but so what? They're aliens, they play weird chess which is too advanced, too computer-like, and mind-boggling. But when you look at Capablanca and you look at, okay, he's developing his minor pieces, he's castling, he's following these simple rules, it's much more relatable. It seems like, yeah, I can do that as well. And that's the beauty. Alright, so what do you do once you completed your main opening tasks, you developed your minor pieces, you castle? The next thing is to develop your heavy pieces, your heavyweights, your strongest pieces, your queen and rooks. They're also pieces, they also needs to be developed, meaning you gotta get them off their original squares. And here Capablanca played queen h5, but any other move of the queen basically would be fine. Queen e2, queen d2, queen h5. He decided to develop it to the most forward available square to make it more active, but again, other options would be good enough as well. Black castled, and then he plays rook d1, bringing the final piece into play. And notice that at this point, white developed all the pieces, meaning every piece that he has made at least one move, and that is the essence of development. Alright, now black decided that they want to develop the knight, but now it's a little bit tough because white puts pressure all around. Black decided to simplify, trade, and then he played knight to c6. What do you do here? Well, of course, you always need to be careful and you need to watch over your opponent's moves, because otherwise it's very simple to get laser focused on what you want to achieve and decide, okay, I'm gonna play f4, f5, something like this, and just blunder this bishop on d4. In order to avoid these type of situations, you need to pay attention to opponent's moves and ask yourself, what's the idea of that move? That would obviously help you to avoid blunders. And that is, again, the essence of Capablanca's play. Your opponents make a lot of mistakes, and in order to win, very often, it is enough for you to just make fewer mistakes, fewer blunders. You don't have to come up with any super advanced plans. right? Just don't make mistakes yourself. Wait for your opponent to play some terrible things and then take advantage of them. All right, so here he goes back, bishop e3, black played e5, I guess to stop this f4 push. What do you do next? Let me ask you a classical question. What is white's plan here? And Capablanca's answer is, there is no plan. Again, he was just a chill guy over 100 years ago. He didn't love this complex thinking. He wanted a simple guideline to follow. And here's a guideline. Principle of the least active piece, that's what I call it. You look at every piece that you have and you try to find the worst one, the most passive one, and then you improve its position. Now, let's try it out for the current position. If you look at all the pieces that white has here, we've got a queen on a pretty active position, putting pressure. We've got this rook, not doing much currently because it's blocked by the bishop, but at least theoretically it stands on this semi-open file. This rook on f1 doesn't do much, all right? This bishop is standing very actively, controls these diagonals. This bishop, yeah, clearly a bad piece, right? It got stuck between these two pawns. It looks like a tall pawn. Probably that's the worst piece. And the knight indeed is doing a pretty good job. White can relocate it there, but for now I would say that this bishop is probably the worst piece that white has. It's quite dull. So what does Capablanca do? Just improve its position. It puts it to a better position and potentially is putting pressure. Again, he doesn't think about plans at all. He's just improving his least active piece. Now, black was probably worried about this opposition and decided to get his king out of the way. And then, what do I do next? Same thing, least active piece. So far, we discovered that there was this bishop on d3, which was bad, but also this rook on f1, which is not doing much. So what do? Well, you need to relocate it to a better square. Of course, you can move it just here, but here it still doesn't do that much. So it makes more sense to double rooks along the d file. And he does that, he goes rook d6. Actually, like, putting the rook anywhere here would also be good enough. Again, Capablanca uses a more like kind of aggressive approach, but basically his idea is just to stack rooks across the d file so that this rook is getting employed and it starts putting pressure. Black developed the queen and attacked the white rook, and white continued with his plan, rook d1, threatening this pawn. Black defends it. Alright, here we have the next question. What do you do next? We talked about the principle of the least active piece, but for this position it's not very applicable anymore because all of white's pieces are already pretty active. There is no bad piece in particular. But then we have one more rule. When all your pieces are already good, then you switch to the attack. But this is a generic word. So how do you do this in particular? You focus your attention on opponent's side of the board and ask yourself, how can I move my pieces forward onto that opponent's side of the board and create threats? So let's apply this to the current position. Focus your attention on opponent's side of the board and ask yourself, how can I go forward and create a threat? The beauty of this approach is that usually there is just one or two moves available. For example, here, like knight to d5 looks interesting, threatening the queen, but if you think about this, you can notice that this would actually blunder this rook on d6 because it won't be defended by the other one. So knight d5 is an interesting idea, but doesn't work in this particular case. Is there anything else? There's also the move bishop g5, which is the one that Capablanca played. Again, pretty much the only move which was left after everything else is excluded. Bishop g5 hits the queen, indirectly the rook, and it's a move onto black's side of the board. Black played f6. Now, how do you continue your attack here? Fundamentally, it is the same approach. You focus your attention on opponent's side of the board, think how to attack. But there is also an additional concept which is extremely helpful. It is called forcing moves. Forcing moves are checks, captures, and attacking moves. These are the moves that force a particular response of your opponent, and they're the most powerful. They are the easiest also for you to calculate because you know what your opponent is going to do in response. And here, Capablanca played queen takes g6. Quite a spectacular sacrifice. Initially, it's quite unclear what's the point of this, but he noticed that this would open up the king, and now he played rook d3, threatening rook h3, checkmate in one. Now, you may be wondering, Igor, you said that he was playing simple chess, but now he plays this very advanced level, combination that requires a ton of calculation. Well, not really. Actually, Stockfish says that, the combination is trash and black is winning the game. That combination was not properly calculated, and here black could play d5 and actually win the game. But I find this fact to be encouraging, because Capablanca was just like us. He didn't like complex calculations. He just relied on his general understanding of the situation. And in most of the cases, it was good enough to win games, such as this one as well. Black played rook to f7 to cover these diagonals so that the king can escape against this check. Now Capablanca realized that given the check directly doesn't do much, the king can just escape, so he played knight d5, adding one more piece into the attack and threatening the queen. Black played queen c5, and now rook h3, basically the forced move, and the most forced move is a check, forcing the king right here. How do you find the continuation of the attack? Same stuff. Focus your attention on both sides of the board, look for forced moves, checks, captures, attack, and moves. And you quickly check them. You quickly look at all these ideas, like what can I do? If I go here, he just captures, alright, nothing. If I take here, it's not really an attacking move because it doesn't threaten anything. I mean, knight takes f6, okay, something to calculate. And knight takes f6 turns out to be quite a cool idea. In the game, Black did not take it. Why didn't he? He can't take it with the rook because the rook is pinned. And if he took it with a pawn, then after bishop takes f6, Black can't stop this checkmate from coming. It's quite a beautiful stuff, I'm sure. Alright, so rook h8, and we're literally checkmating Black. Alright, therefore Black played king to f8, and now it continues, going forward, delivering checks, king goes to e7. How do you play here? At first the position looks very complicated, and it is very complicated. But if you organize your thinking in the right way, it makes it much easier. Again, we want to look at forcing moves. Because guess what? If you play some random move, like, of course it is a silly idea, but I'll just show you what I mean. If you play any random move, what can your opponent play here? Like anything. He can take here, 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 take here, or like whatever move he can play, right? It's very hard for you to comprehend what's going on there and what you should do. Now, instead, imagine you were playing a forcing move, such as a check. What can your opponent do then? Well, only defend his king. Just one thing, which is much easier for you to comprehend and to think about. And with that being said, you need to think about checks. Obviously, the king is exposed, so you just quickly start checking all these options of how you can move forward and deliver a check to the king. Alright, and Capablanca found the move rook e8, which is indeed another beautiful sacrifice. Sacrificing the rook, but now it deflects the rook off this pawn, which we can now grab with another check, and after king goes, that finishes the game. And here's a quick challenge for you. You can test your skills. In this position, Capablanca had another move which also led to a checkmate in 3, and if you can't find it, please write it down in the comments below. So once again, the task is white to move, checkmate in 3, and not rook e8, not the move that Capablanca played. I know that one is winning, but your task is to find another move that also wins in 3 moves. As I said before, I'm really a fan of this approach because I think that especially for adult amateurs, if you have your job, you have your family and other things to do and you don't have much time to allocate for chess, this principle-based approach is a lot more effective and helps you to progress in chess even without spending much time or effort into it. And if you're curious, I've put together a special bundle called Boost Your Elo to 2000 where I've included everything that you need, a clear blueprint to get yourself to that level. And you can click the link below the video or somewhere on the screen and check this out, and I'll be happy to help. Either way, have a great rest of the day and take care.